Da, 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 da. So, yeah, this is the next in our series of humanity, I guess, Paul, where we've discovered that most leadership development, frankly, is a waste of time, and we've been exploring the spiritual side of what it is to be human and a broader perspective. And I think it's been fantastic to share our ideas every couple of weeks. So I think you suggested this week we were going to talk about happiness, which is
Yes.
another myth. So I'm beautifully unprepared for this one. So I'll let you go first with your thoughts, and I'll try and find something intelligent to respond with.
All right, fair enough. Well, listen, the reason I picked happiness is because, both of my mummies, my Christian mummy and my Jewish mummy, sort of spoke about it this week. It's like Pastor Kirley,
Okay.
God in the City in Sydney. She gave a fantastic preach about, like the whole preach was just on sort of like, if you are tired and weary, come to me, my yoke is easy.
Yeah.
And I'll send you the link. It was really beautiful. And she was, she's preaching in a series called Rhythm. And principally her message was, so many people are out of rhythm at the moment because, for all the reasons that life may pull us out of rhythm, but because of COVID. I mean, that's just, that's just been like a whirlwind that's disrupted so much rhythm and routine.
Yeah.
So you're out of rhythm. How do you get back into the rhythm? Easy answer: go to church, be around Christians, worship, sing with others. People in the choir, when they're singing, their heartbeats all synchronized. I didn't know that actually, but
all right.
It sounds like so something like that happens. But at a more profound level, how do you get in rhythm? Walk with Christ. Because if you yoke yourself to anything else, and she's, in her book, The Invisible She, which is excellent, I'll get you a copy sometime. It really is a remarkable book, because it's a book, it's a fashion project, it's all these different things. She talks about a lot of the fig leaves that we put on, and even if people like you and me who sort of like do our miserable best to try and be half decent Christians, it's like, we can get attracted to the fig leaves of high performance, the fig leaves of success, the fig leaf of outstanding customer service. Do you know what I mean? The fig leaf. The heart is the idol making factory.
Yeah.
And so she basically said, none of these things are we designed for. And if we yoke ourselves to them, we will stumble.
Yeah.
But if we yoke ourselves to Christ, three things will happen. Number one, the yoke will fit us perfectly.
Yeah.
Number two, the load is easy and light. And number three, he's right there with us.
Yeah.
He's right there with us.
Yeah.
And she also said that if you're feeling harassed, if you're feeling put on, if you can be sure of look at what you're yoked to. What are you yoking yourself to?
Yeah.
And then Coach Alison, I just actually got an email back from her. She emailed the usual newsletter email that she shoots off to her clients, was about transitions. And she said, look, we're all in a, it was almost exactly the same message, but from a sort of like more secular high performance point of view. And she said, we're all in transitions at the moment, big and small, but COVID has meant that we've had to transition to a different way of thinking, a different way of living, a different way of working, and what transition are you in? And and as a result of that, she attached a chapter of her book that she'd written from happiness. So to speak about happiness, obviously one of the things that she mentioned is that sort of like we can get satisfaction from achieving like little wins. Okay, so for me, it's like once I've worked 5 miles a day, I'm happy about that. Once I've, I had a project to do this morning, and I had to write a treatment for a director for a big beer campaign, funnily enough, in Eastern Europe. And I was like, right, I reckon I can nail this in 4 25-minute writing sessions.
Yeah.
So and I know myself pretty well. And if I can write it, that's pretty good. That means I've nailed a massive treatment in under 2 hours. And I'm the big hip slip guy that I tell my clients I am. Yeah. And if I don't, it doesn't really matter. But that's what I'm going to try and do. And so I did it, and I enjoyed doing it. And I took breaks between each session so I could get my brain to sort of pick. So it took me the whole morning, but it was strolling around Marseille, having coffee, going to the bakery. I only actually wrote for 4 25-minute sessions, but I nailed it, and I felt really good. Yeah. And I was like, right, that's good. My work is done. Rah-de-rah. So there's that. But in general terms, happiness is not really. It's kind of funny because that's kind of like what, I love the way they talk about it in the American Constitution, but in the American Constitution, they talk about the pursuit of happiness. And, I'm rabidly pro-American, and I think the American project has created, maybe along with this, a country unlike any other. But I think happiness has to be a byproduct of something else. And for me, apart from what I just described about making progress in projects and having measurements and hitting those milestones, having those wins, I personally think that's maybe more about satisfaction than happiness. But for me, happiness is an outcome of the quality of my relationships.
Yeah.
And, in recovery, my primary relationship is supposed to be with God. And my primary relationship is very close to being with God, but being the miserable, abject sinner / alcoholic / addict that I am, my primary relationship is actually with myself. But that doesn't matter because God's a very close second. And one of the things I know is that when my relationship with God is good, my relationship with myself is good, and my relationship with everyone else is good.
Yeah.
So that is really, the one I have to watch. And one thing that I've been doing this week is I've actually been trying to be a lot more intentional in my prayer. I mean, actually, my prayer game could do with a bit of an upgrade. I asked someone for some mentoring in Sydney, and this lady was, she's received the Australian equivalent of a knighthood for her services in business. She was a serious player. She was like a girl boss before they had girl bosses. She was the first female head of global TNT Global, getting death threats from unions and stuff like that back in the 70s. And, before we had a session, she prayed. And it wasn't just about, it was a really powerful, thoughtful prayer about a specific issue that I was having with my top of funnel for my business.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, so I think I need to be more intentional in how I talk to God and what I say to God, which is kind of funny because my relationship with God is rather childish in the sense that I do believe the metaphor is that he is the father, I am the child. And so I speak to him like a young child would, and I rarely speak to him as an adult. And so it's a question of just sort of like moving it up a notch.
Yeah.
And without losing the intimacy, just having slightly more adult conversations.
Yeah.
And bringing him into, the yoke of, not the yoke of my work, but bringing him into my work, because that's really where I need him the most. It's like a lot of people, it's like, my pipeline, since I'm pivoting from, doing stuff for creatives to doing stuff for small to medium SME CEOs like yourself, my pipeline is needs filling up. And that's what I need to do, because I don't know how to profile and prospect with CEOs in the way that I used to with production EPs and film directors.
Yeah.
So it's bringing God into that. And so again, look, I don't want to, it kind of goes back to my model of spiritual fitness, spiritual health is the foundation for emotional health, is the foundation for mental health. And that's when you're going to, that's when you're going to find happiness. It's a byproduct of something else. And probably the main thing is the byproduct of mission, what you do and who you love.
Yeah.
It's like, very, very simple philosophies. You need three things in life. You need somewhere to live, something to do, and someone to love. And if you haven't got anyone to love, start with yourself.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
No, lovely. Yeah, that's really interesting, Paul. Yeah, I think a couple of comments on that. I think we have to be careful what we wish for. So I think
amen to that, brother.
I think the Bible's very clear about difficulty leading to perseverance, leading to which eventually leads to hope. And I think hope is a big issue, and it's quite easy to lose sight of that. I think identity matters as well. So it's very important. I think, in fact, there's one common denominator which seems to span Christianity, psychology, all kinds of different facets, which is freedom and really discovering yourself. So who is Paul? Because I think one of the greatest lies is that you follow the 10 commandments, never to be fine, but actually no, Jesus wants you to be you, and I think that's a very important thing. I think happiness is, for me, I think is very much a external thing. I think it's about wishing for circumstances that suit you. So when you were talking about achieving targets and things, I think that's a little bit for me sort of external circumstances or things aligning. I think
you mean the I'll be happy when, or I'll be happy if.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I've noticed actually through my faith and through my prayer, and I think prayer is very easy, and actually it's quite easy to make it sound complicated or sort of flamboyant. I think the structure of the Lord's Prayer is quite interesting because it's all about worship first, and just walking around with your eyes open and just looking at the wonder of the world and just getting yourself in the right place, from which everything else happens. And I think to be honest, it really doesn't. What I've noticed is when you sort of get that right, it really doesn't matter what happens during your day. So I had a meeting last week which was quite difficult. I'm a sort of extreme end of it, quite difficult, and the person I was meeting was extremely experienced individual, been around the block a few times, who was in absolute mess, frankly, and I was completely calm, and that is because that's the manifestation practically of the peace of God, which is totally independent upon happenings or external surroundings. And I think at its simplest level, there's also a business locally here which is pretty extraordinary, and I love it actually when next time you come over to the UK to take you there. It's a cafe which is run by a guy I've got to know extremely well and I've supported over the last few years. And this guy's just got the most amazing. It's called Heartworks Cafe, and it's a very loving place. The guy is very open. He's very graceful. He's got a very very joyful way about him, and a certain fragility as well. But and I think it's really, and this place is unique because people they engage with each other with quite a lot of grace from all kinds of different backgrounds. And I mean, I think, and the benefit, and then it comes down to, I think a lot of the happiness I experience, I think, is down to the quality of the communication that I have with other people. So do people acknowledge me for who I am, and vice versa? Are we interested in really listening to somebody else's view, and to allow people to be themselves and give them grace and love? So I think the whole thing is a sort of spiritual thing. and as part of doing that, I think you then discover yourself and you're allowed to be yourself. So that's my take. I think the underlying driver of this is, not just having God as a sort of nice to have. It's
It's definitely in the must-have category.
Yeah,
it's not some optional extra.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if there's one thing for sure, in my family in particular, that my kids know that is not a nice to have because of the sort of life I lead. And when we pray, we need to pray. It's not a sort of spiritual ritual that we go through. It's because Daddy leads a certain type of life that it's pretty unusual in terms of maybe some of their peers, and it's a necessity to pray. So, and and to be honest as well, you look at the way Jesus lived his life. It was, he never said, "Sorry, Paul, I'm too busy." He stopped for anybody that needed help, and his life was haphazard. So, again, it wasn't about, and so if anybody's got it right, it's him. It wasn't so much about was Jesus happy.
Absolutely.
It's a bit of, it's a bit of an absurdity to think was Jesus happy. I think Jesus was very joyful and peaceful, but I wouldn't say that Jesus was happy per se. I don't know, it's a slightly trite word, but that's what I would say about happiness. You're on mute, Paul, I think. Yeah.
Right. Oh, sorry. He definitely was. And I think I think it was Darrell Houston who talks about he met some curmudgeonly old monk that he really admired, and he said, described Jesus in one word, and he said, relax.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? He actually was relaxed. And again, and that gets back down to my yoke.
Yeah. He's the ultimate cool dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Smartest man that ever lived, or because he was the God man that ever lived, but he was actually he was chilled.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're right, it's sort of like self-expression. It's about bringing fruit for that plan God has for us. When he knitted us, in Genesis, he knew that there was going to be a Tom, and he knew there was going to be a Paul, and he knew that it was in the plan that they were going to connect. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it like that.
Yeah.
But that's the God, that's the enormity of the God we serve.
Yeah. I think the other thing with it is as well, is that we have absolutely no control over what happens around us. We like to think we have, and a lot of strategic planning, a lot of business is sort of assuming that we know what's going to happen, but all we can do is really respond with the right heart from the right spiritual place to what happens in our world.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't help myself this morning. I've got this, when I was at business school, there was this woman there, and she's it's weird because in some ways she's kind of like my arch nemesis, because she's a humanist and very, very woke. But I actually like her, and I actually admire her. And the reason why I admire her is because, I can tell that she's thought very deeply about these issues and really cares a lot.
Yeah.
And was kind of like ahead of the curve with it, and has just come to the wrong place. So I admire in the way I admire a jihadi. It's like, you're serving, you're really doing, you haven't taken this as you haven't allowed yourself necessarily to be brainwashed. You really believe this.
Yeah.
And you're making a sacrifice, and you're living that way. So
yeah.
But she wrote this thing, and what I find so odd about her is, and she's a really accomplished person as well, by the way. I mean, I was on the point of hiring her as a mentor, and then she put pronouns in her bio. I go, right, sorry, I can't do that. And it's true. I was like, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
And I got another mentor instead. And oddly enough, the mentor that I got used to teach Bible camps. So I was like, great. So hallelujah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, she wrote a lovely post this morning about sort of like, give yourself a pat on the back. Think about, what 6 months you would think of where you are and what you're doing, and how your yardstick would be, yourself. And she ended by saying, because you are all you need, and you're all you've got, and you're all yours you ever have. And it was, and all these people are going, oh, that's so great, Kate, and everything. But it's just a miserable life philosophy.
Yeah.
So
I think the thing about woke actually is it doesn't allow you to be yourself. And actually, the thing that concerns me, like you actually just said, I don't mind if someone's reached a different conclusion. It's quite interesting. But the difficulty is if you feel like you're talking to the dogma rather than you're talking to the person. I think some people are so overawed by the dogma, it's almost impossible to really find out who they are. And actually, it's also for them an absolute hell as well, because they don't find out who they are either. All they're doing is repeating this dogma. And I think in that's seriously unhappy, Paul, because that, I mean, as well as it being utterly unattainable, because the minute you walk out the door, you're going to cock something up in the first nanosecond. So this sort of self-righteousness and berating everybody and victimization and all these ideologies are just ridiculous. So I mean, my concern, and that's a part, I think that's the reason why woke people are so unhappy, because they just don't discover who they are at all, and that's rather scary to me.
It's just it's a conformist ideology, and even, I mean, really, the point of her, even though she's quite woke, the point of her post was much more humanist and being, like I said, when you look at it, it looks like a great message.
Yeah.
The message was be a good friend to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, which isn't actually necessarily. There's nothing actually wrong with that. It's kind of weird. You could write the same thing in a Christian forum, and it would make sense. But it's like, but when you say be a good friend to yourself because that's all you've ever got, you go, oh, hang on a second.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of those divides. No, you're right. A lot of those, I've noticed that. She's worried the hell out of me recently. Some of those divides are very narrow, and actually, I think it comes back to where's your root. It comes back to what you were saying before. You talked about where do you find your roots? Is it you, or is it? And actually, when you talk, if you start talking about it, you can actually, it can sound quite similar, but it really depends. Which garden you're planted in. Are you planted in the woke, self-righteous sort of humanist garden, which is frankly a road to hell and falls to pieces if anything gets slightly difficult, the wheel's going to fall off that, versus the infinite creator who can sort out anything and just chill out, it doesn't matter what happens, albeit you are obviously still accountable type methodology. So it can sound quite similar, and I think that's a bit concerning in some ways, but quite reassuring in other ways.
But it was interesting because when I did it, it's like my intent really wasn't to get into a flame war with her, because I definitely, my character defects, I actually quite like getting in flame wars with people, online, but I just don't do it anymore because it's just an absolute waste of my energy.
Yeah.
And sort of like playing to the least helpful part of me. But the reason why I wanted to do it is because I did just want to say something and because everyone put something on that post, which was the alternative point of view, which was the Christian point of view.
Yeah.
And I think I expressed it quite nicely. Praise God. And I felt really good about it. And really, the reason I'm doing it is because she's not dissimilar to Russell Brand, and she would make an amazing Christian.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that would just, if she was saved, she would be fantastic.
Yeah.
It would, and I felt good. It was actually I felt good that I did it. It was kind of like the thing that I did in the morning after I picked up my phone, which I'm very wary about what I do then because I can get distracted.
Yeah.
And so it worked well.
Yeah.
The other thing I did is actually when I get up in the morning, I do look at my phone, but then what I do is I put it down for a minimum half an hour. And then, just don't look at it for a half an hour. Generally, I go and walk. And a lot of the time when I go and walk, I listen to something like Joyce Meyer or a sermon or something spiritual or religious. And these days I'm like, you know what, just don't, before you even do that, just go out and walk and listen to what God's saying.
Yeah.
You know? So it's kind of like a walking meditation.
Yeah.
Let me show you where I am.
Cool. No, that all makes sense. Yeah.
Have you seen me when we last spoke? Was I in Marseille? I think I was.
I can't remember. It was somewhere in France. Whereabouts are you now?
In Marseille.
That's beautiful, isn't it? Lovely.
Yeah. Wait till you see. So my apartment's just down there, which is great. The location is just off the scope. So this is one of the places by the harbour, which is going to sort of kick off later. I actually think I think it's hotter in the UK than it is here. This place hasn't got a bit cooler yet.
Yeah, it's dropped a lot. It's dropped a lot now, so it's probably, I don't know, 19 degrees or something now. So it's got back to normal. What temperature is it there?
Have all the climate loonies stopped gluing themselves to British Rail?
Yeah.
What's the temperature here? Hang on a second, I'll tell you. Feels quite nice and temperate. Oh, feels quite 32.
Oh, right. Yeah, nice temperature.
But I think it's because by the water.
Yeah.
So there's a breeze.
That's lovely. Looks lovely, Paul.
Yeah, it's actually so warm that I actually don't feel like eating, sort of like sitting and eating heavy meals, because it's all al fresco here. It's like,
nice.
You know, if there was a nice, I'm sure I could find air-conditioned restaurants, but I sort of, you know, I don't. So it's good seafood.
That's lovely.
Great.
I
really think Marseille is just one of France's best kept secrets. I've always really liked it. It's like you don't realise it's actually France's second city.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, it is. It's the second biggest city outside France.
Amazing. Yeah.
And you know, very multicultural, but multicultural in a cool way.
Yeah.
You know.
I always like the pride. I like the pride of the French. The place is clean, isn't it? There's no crap around. I think the general standard of, I don't hate the word behaviour, but the general standard of
There is. Look, you know, it was we
discipline.
had Bastille Day the other day, and people were marching.
Yeah,
and there is a pride.
Yeah, there's a strong French identity, isn't there? Which I think we've lost a bit to a degree in the UK through all this woke
To the
nonsense.
French. And you know, the French are